Hi, this is Jeff Stone of Grandpa's Pride Barbecue from the Panhandle of Florida, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
Boing. We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the Charbono, dude!
Succulent fish! What?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seed.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour of the Barbecue Central show. This is a show that talks about only the most important live fire barbecue and grilling topics that are gracing the live fire landscape. Where do we do it from?
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
It is live right now from 9 to 11 every Tuesday. It's also being recorded, so if you can't catch it live, you can catch it in podcast. Hour number 1 will appear at some point overnight, and hour number 2 will appear on the podcast feed on Thursday. I'll tell you about Friday here in just 1 second. What was that? Who's still to come on the show tonight? Well, I'm glad you asked. Susie and Todd Bullock from HeyGrillHey.com will be joining us in about 13 minutes from now. Don't forget, you can follow me socially at BBQ Central Show on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and the Snapper Snaps /BBQ Central Show on Facebook and Twitch for a live video feed. Also, /RD Rempe on YouTube. If you would prefer that, there's a lively chat going on over on YouTube as well. A couple Twitch chats as well. I see you people out there. So if I'm not reacting, it doesn't mean that I don't see you. It's just that I'm not always reacting to the chat because I don't get, I learned many years ago. What did I learn? Well, you have this chat going on and it's scrolling up and down and all of a sudden you're interviewing somebody, but now you've lost yourself into the chat, reading people bickering back and forth with each other. And guess what? The guest stopped talking. That's bad. It's a bad interview technique. So I learned peruse every now and again. If something really hits, then you'll see it pop up on the screen. But otherwise, I see everybody. Don't worry about it. Don't get offended if I'm not saying your name or whatever you're supposed to do when the real YouTube live people do it. Get super chats and say, hey, Tim2824, thanks for coming in, pal. That's not this kind of a show. But I see you. So I'm recognizing you all right now. I see all of you, and I see everything that you're writing. I just, most of the time, don't bother reacting to it. And that's fine. Also, we are live audibly on Clubhouse as well. I see our friend Stover is in, Johnny Maggs. We'll see Johnny Maggs on the show in a couple weeks. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central show in 10 minutes or less, episode 242, taking you back to August 18th, 2015. Yes, 7 years ago. This week, we feature the one and only to date interview that I have done with the new barbecue darling of Texas. Maybe not new, but certainly a name that you're not overly familiar with when it comes to the old standbys that have been dominating year after year. His name, Ernest Cervantes. I say, again, new for the folks who only know of Ernest recently due to the major success and rave reviews of the restaurant in Seguin, Texas. However, Ernest has been in the barbecue game a long time. When he was really competing, he was very successful. He spent time in fine dining restaurants, classically chained chef. To simply put it, Ernest can flat out cook in any form or fashion, and it's live fire that seems to have really piqued his interest and caught his passion. And his guests are reaping the rewards. And the praise is early and often and in large doses. I've never heard of Seguin, Texas in my life until Ernest opened Burnt Bean, and I want to get down there to say, A, I was in Seguin, but more importantly, to eat in Ernest's restaurant. Plus, they talk about that brunch that he serves. That might be better than the actual barbecue itself. Maybe it should be a 2-day event. Look, this was a great look into who Ernest was at the time. Again, we're going on 7 years ago, well before the restaurant, and what he was looking to do in the years ahead. However, I think what you hear most clearly through this interview is how good of a guy and how humble of a guy Ernest was back then and still is. This is going back to 2015. So look forward to that. Again, you have to be subscribed to the podcast feed in order to get the best of show. And you can also send John an email and ask him to play another guest or segment again that might have become lost in the archives. John's email, jon@thebbqcentralshow.com. That's jon@thebbqcentralshow.com. And he will do his best to meet your show expectation. Upcoming shows for the balance of August include visits from the bristly barbecue journalist Derek Riches from DerekRiches.com, Chris Young from Combustion Inc., CEO over there. The embedded correspondents show up on the fourth Tuesday in the second hour for some 100% assurity questions, and we have a number of topics to get their opinions on. John Furman from Bub and Mother's Rubs comes in for the first time, and a group interview with none other than cigar expert and my go-to man when it comes to sourcing good sticks, Mr. Jonathan from the Cigar Authority podcast. And as I had just mentioned a couple minutes ago, Johnny Maggs, who is the host of the Pit Life Barbecue podcast. A couple weeks ago, those two went head-to-head at the Two Guys Smoke Shop in New Hampshire in a burger bash. I'm not going to tell you who won, but it wasn't Mr. Jonathan. And we're going to have them recount that whole competition, where it went bad for Mr. J, where Johnny Maggs exceeded and then blew past Mr. Jonathan in order to capture this title. I'm not giving anything away because it was all released a number of weeks ago on a different show, but I want to get the inner workings, the thought processes behind why you build this kind of a burger, why you build that kind of burger, and also show where the expertise lies between the two. I don't know Mr. Jonathan to be any type of food competitor other than some type of a meatball contest that Two Guys holds every year that he's never won. And then you have a somewhat of a competitive cook in Johnny Maggs. He knows how to build boxes. He knows how to bring attention to a dish in a positive fashion. And he was not building burgers for him. I'm speaking for Johnny. I could be wrong. He's building burgers to win. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused, especially in the world of barbecue. You're always told, don't cook barbecue the way you want to eat it. Cook it for the judges. That's who is going to vote for you in order to win. So that's what you want to do. So that's what's going to be coming up for the balance of August. Where do I have time to go? Well, we talked about it with Rod. I'll talk about it now, and then I can just get this off the queue list. Is anybody watching Barbecue USA on the Food Network with my best pally or bestie for the restie, Mike Simon? Anybody? I don't watch it live on Monday nights because it's a little too late for me. In fact, this is too late for me, but I got through it because I've become accustomed to doing it for the last 16 years. A lot of people answering yes in the instant chat. So the follow-up question, if you're watching it, is it just because it's some form of barbecue on television, number one? And then what do you think the biggest wins are doing this? We've seen barbecue on television a number of times. We've seen it, especially on Food Network, a number of times. It doesn't always seem to pan out very well on the Food Network a lot of the time. I've heard rumblings. I believe Emily Detweiler made some type of a reference into saying she thinks, or maybe she heard, that Barbecue USA was going to be renewed for a second season. We know the longevity that Barbecue Pitmasters had. Now, whether you agree or disagree with the various formats that show went through over its lifespan, I think it went 11 seasons. I mean, you heard Rod talk about when he was on, it was season 6 or season 7, went on for 4 or 5 more seasons, depending on what right season Rod was on. That was a long-running barbecue show. Again, not my cup of tea. I'm not contest guy. I don't really dig those, but I'm obviously in the minority of thinking like that. I would rather have a following of one or two teams, but following them in totality. I want to see what's going on at home. I want to see them getting ready for a competition. I want to see teamwork. I want to see bickering. Then I want to see them get to the competition, do the competition. Does it matter if they win or not? Now, who cares?
Get that big stuff out of here.
But barbecue is just a part of it. As I've always said, you watch Deadliest Catch, guess what's going to happen in every show? They're going to fish. That happens all the time. But it's almost a second thought because you're more invested, or you've become invested in the captains of the ships, or the guy that runs the hydros, or the newest greenhorn that's vomiting over the ship 20 minutes into the trip. I think that can be a recipe that works. Obviously, I'm wrong. But even Leanne Whippen said last week, there was a season 2 of what was that first season's format on Barbecue Pitmasters before there was some kind of a spat between networks and they changed the format. I still think it can work. It's proving out on television every other way except in the barbecue scene. You tell me barbecue people aren't interesting, that people won't build relationships with them? Give me a break. They're more relatable than anybody else. Is anybody relating to the Kardashians? Look, you still watch them.
Get that big stuff out of here.
I mean, I know I have a private jet, they have a private jet, but that's where the similarities end. Susie and Todd Bullock are in the green room. We'll get to them here in just 1 second. I'll talk to you quickly about Big Papa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for all things barbecue, a curated selection of only the best outdoor cooking and grilling supplies, getting you on the path to better barbecue results in no time. Big Papa's known for the championship rubs and seasonings, popular flavors like Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, all proven winners on the competition circuit and in backyards. 13 perfectly balanced flavors that transform ordinary meals into extraordinary. Also the owner of Granny's Barbecue Sauce. If you're looking for a new go-to sauce that will please everybody, or you're tired of what's existing out there, give Granny's a try. Great all by itself out of the bottle, or if you want to use it as base sauce and trick it out from there, certainly your prerogative. Aside from the premium selection of rubs and sauces, Big Papa Smokers also offers the very best cookers available on the market today. If you're looking for a versatile smoker that's easy to use, check out that Mac 2-star General Pellet Cooker. Big Papa Smokers, the exclusive Mac dealer, even offering special packages. Not a fan of pellet smokers? All right. Don't know what grill you might want? Okay. Call them, 877-828-0727. That's 877-828-0727. And ask away. They'll make sure you're outfitted with exactly what you need. Or shop the website, bigpopsmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA smokers.com. We are back with Susie and Todd from Hey Grill Hey. Right after this, stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the number 2 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Smithfield. Head on over to smithfield.com right now for recipes, tips, and tricks from well-known live-fire cooks like Darren Worth, Jess Pryles, and Charles Cridlin. With mouth-watering flavor and no artificial ingredients, Smithfield Fresh Pork is quite simply some of the finest pork money can buy and the trusted choice of top cooks for use at competitions and at home. That's Smithfield, and the website smithfield.com. All right, leading off the second hour and joining me for their quarterly visit here in 2022, the creator of Hey Grill Hey, one of the most recognizable and popular names in the live fire space. Many things continuing to transpire here in the live fire space since our last visit, so we waste no more time racing to the hotline and welcoming back Susie and Todd Bullock from Hey Grill Hey. Hey Grill Hey, you two. I have no sound. Yeah. Make sure you close out the whole browser if you change settings and then come back in. That'll work. Assuming you made changes. All right. Away they go. Much like Rod Gray wouldn't listen to me. How dare you?
Any sound? My headphones weren't working either. Something's wrong, and I don't know how to fix it.
Normally, we're very prepared, but we had technical equipment fail on us.
Audio's like my thing, so I'm kind of embarrassed.
The audio visual scene at Hey Grill Hey needs a little haying at this point.
Yeah.
Both of your opinions. Susie, you go first. Is $34 a pound for brisket too much at this point?
Yes.
Todd?
Wait,
all right.
Cooked or uncooked?
No, cooked. Like if you're going to a barbecue restaurant. Yeah, $34 a pound for uncooked brisket is way too much.
That's astronomical.
That is ridiculous.
It jumped from 20 to 30 real quick. Someone's doing $34.99.
There
I don't know.
are many restaurants. Now, I looked a lot in Texas because that's where I associate brisket, and there were plenty at 34. Franklin, Black's, La Barbecue. Some of them, I'm not saying they were hiding it, but they were also selling by the half pound at $17 a pound. But Todd, you're a CPA, so you can do the quick math. That's $34 a pound. And not only that, but here in Cleveland, tomorrow I'm going to Michael Simon's Mabel's Barbecue Restaurant, who is also selling it the half pound at $17. So it's not just Texas. It's not just somewhere relegated to a region of the country. It appears to be even in places as dismal as Cleveland. So that seems like a lot.
I think that's really expensive, but I also know what costs are associated from a restaurant end when it comes to food costs. And brisket has a lot of costs associated that aren't just product related. You're looking at volume loss during the cooking process. So your yield is very different than your raw cost. You're also looking at fuel costs. You're looking at property costs for restaurants, but also the labor that goes into actually producing that product is very different than most other food types. I mean, just the hours that it takes to prep, cook, rest, and serve is astronomical. I also know that a lot of these restaurants are trying to pay their employees in a way that makes sense given the environment that we're currently living in, and inflation has hit people across the board, but food costs in restaurants have been specifically struck. And those who are lucky enough to survive the pandemic are now figuring out how to make margins. So I think eating at a restaurant is a privilege in general. I think it's something that with low food costs, we have taken advantage of for a majority of our lives. We've set an expectation in our brains that it should be cheap, fast, and easy. And I don't think that's the case with barbecue anymore. I think, restaurant owners are combating a lot. And if we want to eat out, we have to recognize that for the privilege that it is. That means that we're probably going to pay for it.
Todd, your thoughts?
I mean, the Disneyland effect popped in my brain, right? So they keep upping the prices and upping the prices and upping the prices because they can, because the demand's there. So if you don't want to pay $34.99, I guess don't go eat there. You spend your dollars somewhere else. But if I want to go try the best barbecue in Texas, then I'm probably going to shell out $34.99 a pound. If that's what they're charging, I guess that's what I'm going to pay.
One of the things I wanted to talk about this evening or give you platform to do, I don't know how much you've done it on your own social medias and websites, I would assume pretty decent amount. But for my fans, we know your products. A lot of people are big fans of your products, but there might be two new things that are going to be hitting the Hey Grill Hey line. So tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, we just gave a sneak peek. So we have our Grill Squad. It's our online barbecue community and virtual kind of barbecue and grilling school. They get a lot of sneak peeks when it comes to products and all of that. So we just broke this to these guys. So now we're allowed to share it with the community at large. But we're launching our rib rub and a mustard style zesty gold sauce is what we're calling it. That's coming out in the next couple of weeks. And these are fun ones for us because we're out here in Utah. And when it comes to something like a dry rib rub, you automatically think Memphis, or a mustard sauce, you think South Carolina. But being out here, we really have the opportunity to put our own spin on a lot of things. So I feel like these are my homage to these barbecue regions that have really influenced my cooking overall. But I get to put, kind of my own spin on things and twist them up. So those will be coming out hopefully by the end of the month. We're shooting to have them ready for ship for Labor Day. So
you don't already have a rib rub?
I have a sweet rub, and that one's kind of an all-purpose barbecue rub, and we use it on ribs. But the rib rub is a little bit different. It pulls more savory. It has things like celery seed in it that I think, like I said, that's kind of one of those classic barbecue rub ingredients. But it also has a couple other things in there that are pretty unique to this specific seasoning, and I think gives it a little something extra.
Todd, are you a mustard sauce fan?
Typically I haven't been, but the more that I use it, this new one, I really, really like it.
Also, I put it on everything so he doesn't have a choice.
You're getting to love it by association.
Yeah.
He's going to love it. When we're testing new products or when I'm testing new recipes for the website, it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I could probably never eat ribs again, or I could probably never eat this thing again, because it's a really rigorous process to get the flavor profiles, the consistency, all the stuff that I want. It's so much work and a lot of eating. And I mean, we call him Taste Test Todd. The poor man has his own hashtag. So like, it has to be Todd approved before it hits anywhere. And so he has to eat a lot of it.
I had a favorite mustard-based sauce, and this is going back a number of years, before even the podcast, when I just had the barbecue forum back in the day. It was South Carolina. It was called Reverend Marvin's. It's not in manufacturing anymore. There was a normal and a spicy version. Very thin, very flavorful, had a nice spice to it. I actually put it in coleslaw and made a mustard-based sauce coleslaw. When you're developing specifically this sauce, there's a billion Kansas City sauces and a billion Piedmont sauces, but this is traditionally a very hyper-regional sauce dedicated to even just a portion of South Carolina. It doesn't encompass all of South Carolina. So how do you know you're doing it right?
I think this is one of those things where we get to say that we're inspired by, but I'm from Utah, so if I do it wrong, sorry. I think
that's a big risk.
I think it's a big risk, but I also think, barbecue is and has been historically hyper regional, but I think with, the insurgence of barbecue as a backyard event for more and more and more Americans, and the internet being as open and as accessible as it is, these regional flavors are having a national stage right now, and the opportunity to be tasted and tweaked and distributed in a way that maybe it was hyper regional in terms of restaurants serving it, but now anybody can make or have a Carolina style sauce that's mustard based in their own kitchen and in their backyard. So I think we're going to see people using these traditional recipes in different ways. I think we're going to see people taking this, classic form of something that they were inspired by and tweaking it to suit their family and their taste. I mean, my mustard sauce, I can already tell you, pulls just a hint sweeter than I think what you would get in a traditional South Carolina style sauce. It has a little bit more honey in it. And that's a preference that we love and we develop. And I think it creates a really nice balance. But like you said, I mean, even then, the stuff that is hyper regional and super specific, it's never identical. Everybody that recreates it does it their own way. And otherwise it would just be carbon copies. And then there would be no regional anything anywhere. It would all just be the same everywhere. So I think we approach stuff like this with respect for where it came from and an appreciation for how it started. And then, also realize that things are meant to grow and things are meant to be touched and tweaked and played with. So
let's follow up on that a little bit. You have a pretty healthy products offering portfolio at the time. Now you're adding 2 things, or you've just added 2 new things to that. Do you and Todd talk regularly about an ideal number of products to have available in the market at any given time?
I don't think we've talked about a specific thing. I just know or a specific number. I just know we're being really careful to not do too many things, to the point where we want to build a baseline, and then maybe we do limited edition things or seasonal things or whatever, just to keep it interesting. But yeah, we're now at 6 rubs and 6 sauces, and I don't think we should go any higher than that, to be honest.
Yeah, we really don't have any plans to. And honestly, getting to 6 and 6 came from our operations manager at the warehouse, who said, 6 bottles fit in a box a lot better than 5. And so we took it to our community online and we said, what do you guys want to see? If we didn't even intend to roll one more out. We were like 5 and 5. That's great. And he was like, literally, we're paying the same in shipping, whether you have 5 or 6. So I think it's probably a good idea to have 6, and then you're not wasting space in a box. So our audience came back and leaned really heavily towards, they want these regional style sauces. Our top 2 were the Carolina mustard sauce and the Alabama white sauce that people wanted to see in bottled format. And I think that plays into what you were saying. It has been this hyper regional. It has been this small subset of the barbecue population that had access to these types of flavors and these types of sauces or seasonings. And now to be able to have access to more stuff like that, I think is really cool.
If you were going to be adding more products at this point, we're talking hypothetically, would you then perhaps take a look at what the least selling by volume, or if you were going to be adding 2, if you were going to add 2, would you look at the bottom 2 and then consider retiring those?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
The hard part about that is that every single one of our rubs and sauces has like a loyal following. And so we'll ask people, what's your favorite? And it's across the board. Like, yes, some sell much more than others on the website in terms of like people buying them and their popularity and whatever. But there are people that just love this one rub or love this one rub or sauce. And so I would feel so bad. I'd have to like send them their own little stockpile before we discontinued it or something. I don't know.
Susie and Todd Bullock joining us here on the show, heygrillhey.com, the website, of course. Todd, what's the Foodie It podcast?
Oh, no. So Susie released we released the Hey Grill Hey app, and I was out to lunch with some friends, and I have this friend who is a self-proclaimed idiot when it comes to food, he's like, dude, I downloaded your app and I've been using it to build shopping lists and menu plans and go shopping and cook for my family, and it's changed our lives.
Nice.
And I want to start a podcast about us being idiots talking and learning about food. So that's where it came from. It's just me and 2 of my best friends just talking about food.
Not to get into the weeds of podcasting here, but I'm kind of a pro. Do you put together is it a weekly release? I mean, let's start from the high levels here. What kind of a release schedule do you have for this thing?
Yeah, so we do like a Sunday night release, and we have it planned out. It's edited, and it's planned out and edited, a week in advance probably, and we've got 2 or 3 in the back pocket usually, so we can, if we take a week off of recording, then we're not behind, kind of a thing.
So is the major importance then to make sure that you keep that buffer amount in the can just in case? Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard this guy or gal has this great idea, they're burning about it, and they're releasing once a week or whatever the initial release schedule is, but then like after a quarter they start to fade a little bit, and then another quarter later it's like instead of once a week it's once a month, and then all of a sudden boom, they're gone, and their most recent episode was 5 years ago. So how are you strategically planning to guard against what we call pod fade?
That's a great question. Well, luckily we grew up really good friends. We had kind of a time when we were building careers and families where we didn't spend a lot of time together, and we've realized we missed that. So now it's very motivating to get together at least weekly to record, and we all live in the same town now, and we didn't before. So that's one thing. The other thing is we have a list of 100+ ideas for episodes, and then we're literally weeks and months scheduled out. We know exactly what we're going to be talking about, for weeks and weeks, and then we just keep that plan going. And as long as the plan's there, I think we'll keep going. So,
is there a temptation to go the easy number of times to the well and pull Susie into a recording? I mean, she's a draw, right?
Listen, they waited 25 episods before they invited me on as a guest.
Wow, good for
Yes.
you. That's good.
Also,
That's impressive. I would have had you on
bit,
number one. Forget about it.
I offered. I think they had a little bit of, they wanted to do it on their own, and they wanted to build something that was their own. And I think they did have a little bit of that fear of like this might fizzle out. And so they didn't even really start promoting until they had a whole handful of episodes in the bag, because I feel like they really wanted to be an established place where people could have a backlog of things to talk about. And personally, like, I say this as Todd's wife, but also as a listener, the way that they structure their podcast is really relatable. I think a lot of people grew up in kind of the convenience food era of, the 80s and 90s, with moms going back to work and latchkey kids and having food that was available. And so when they say that they were foodie, they're not lying. Like, they just ate fast food or convenience food and never learned how to cook until they were in their 30s. And as they were talking to people, they realized that a lot of people our age were having similar experiences. And I think the pandemic specifically forced a lot of people into learning how to cook that previously didn't have that information. So it's really fun to listen and follow along with their journeys, because they start each episode with the appetizer and they talk about a topic that they know nothing about. And so they just bounce questions that you wouldn't think would be a question if you're in the food world. But to people who are new or learning, like, a lot of things that they're asking are common sense, and maybe you wouldn't think to Google them, or you wouldn't, but it's really relatable. And then they take a week to research all of their questions and get back together the next week and then go through and answer their questions and have conversations and kind of learn together about things that they didn't know about before. And I think they get to take the listener on that journey with them. So it's funny, it's insightful. I think you learn a lot about food, more about things than you even realized you didn't know. So even if you're not a foodie to begin with, there's something that you can glean from it. And I think he's cute and they're fun.
What I think is most admirable about that whole lead portion of the podcast, Todd, is you guys are putting yourself out there to say, hey, maybe I'm not as knowledgeable as the next guy or gal. And here I'm offering my shortcomings to you. And there has to be a large, as Susie was saying, there's got to be a large portion of that audience is like, well, I would never ask anybody that question out loud, or there's no way I would do. I'm so happy there's this guy Todd and his other food idiot friends who are openly discussing everything I've ever feared about talking about other people with. And not only that, they're relatable in that aspect, but now you're giving solutions, or you're providing information on top of that. And that's what having a successful podcast is all about, right? It's supplying a great interview or some kind of great educational piece, but then also making it entertaining on top of that. So what's your biggest hope, or your biggest guest get, or like what's the stretch goal for the podcast?
Other than Greg Rempe? I don't know.
Yeah, then it's over. Yeah. Okay. Pod fade right there.
I don't know. You're talking about like an Alton Brown or something like that, a really smart person with food. Like, I don't know if he's the one, but just someone like that, one of my one buddy's a huge fan of Sam the Cooking Guy, and that's one of his dream lands. So
one of us might know him pretty well.
I know.
So maybe if you need help, maybe I can help out. I suppose this is something you can subscribe to on any podcast platform.
Yeah, any podcast platform is just the Foodie It Podcast, and then on social media at Foodie It Podcast. On all of them, we're posting frequently, and we're having a lot of fun, and we're learning a lot. And if you tune in and listen, you'll see that we have a long way to go. But I think that's the beauty of it is we're like, no, we're idiot. Not only are we food idiots, we're also podcast idiots. So we're learning as we go.
That's the only way to do it. Learning as you go and then leaning on the people that have expertise when you need questions answered. That's what it's all about. Plus, 2 new products that we've also discovered here this evening, a rib rub and a mustard-based barbecue sauce rub that will be heading out. HeyGrillHey.com, the website. There's Susie right there on the left and Todd right there on the right. Guys, always appreciate you coming on for the quarterly visits, and we do it again before the year's up, so looking forward to that.
Next time we'll have a real microphone.
All right, fingers crossed, and I'll hold you to it. Susie and Todd Bullock, HeyGrillHey.com. If you would like to go over and grab the rib rub. Again, I was surprised they hadn't had a rib rub already out, but I have the sweet rub, and it's done. What did I say about Bub and Mothers? I'm a sweet rub guy, and it's really good. So I'll be excited to try out the rib rub because I also love ribs. All right, quick read here. We'll get some crowd reaction, and then we might call it a night here a little bit earlier than normal. What do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they are fuel efficient. We love you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring high heat for grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But what's missing in the everyday lineup of ceramic cookers? The ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking, very important to both professional and backyard cooks alike. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire and a round ceramic cooker is not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grills and their game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. Really, when you break it down, there are more than 60 different ways to configure a Primo cooker. So you're only limited by your culinary imagination. The website, primogrill.com. And if you missed it, if you don't subscribe to the show, you don't follow me socially, if you don't subscribe to me on the podcast, then you missed a bonus content with the president of Primo Grill, Nick Bauer. Primo Grill had their Primo Bash, first annual, over this past weekend in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. It was at their manufacturing facility. They had plant tours. Dealers were there, distributors were there, Primo customers were there. To-be Primo customers were also there taking plant tours, seeing how everything was made. And as Nick said, totally American-made. Not like some of the other stuff that claims where they're bringing it in, but then they're assembling. Gets a little gray area there when you're throwing the good old US of A around, don't you think? Yes. Well, not here. It's all right here in the States, and they can prove it because the manufacturing facilities are all right there. The ceramics portion of that business right across the street. Primogrill.com, that's primogrill.com. Find a dealer near you, and then take it from there. We are back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
I gotta figure out what the hell that is. That's annoying. That's happened 3 weeks in a row. I'm gonna have to take the Tower of Power 3 into the shop. Hey, back in the day, watches were made to be worn in the pocket after World War II. Wristwatches came into vogue, and the pocket watch quickly became an afterthought, finding their way into sock drawers and scrap heaps. Quite simply, a tragedy. Enter Vortic Watch Company, helping bridge the gap between America's storied watch manufacturing past and bringing it to the present day, where wristwatches are finding incredible popularity once again. Here's the coolest part. Each watch that Vortic makes is unique and one of a kind. In other words, nobody will have a watch just like yours. founded on the motto that America wasn't assembled, it was built. Check out VorticWatches.com for more information. By the way, I'm not bragging, but I'm finally getting my Vortic watch. Not the one I really, really wanted, but there was a prop piece that they had sent me that I fell in love with and said, hey, instead of just this waiting because my patience has worn thin, what about that one so-and-so watch? Well, they took the guts out of it, rebuilt it, and it is on the way to me. You'll see it next week. The Burlington Special Railroad Watch Edition, 51 millimeters. If you're not a watch person, that means nothing to you. This one is 44 millimeters, so 7 millimeters bigger than that. Probably, I don't typically wear watches that big. I'm a 42 to 44 guy. This one specifically fits my wrist really nice. 51, I do already have a 51. That's like the Sam the Cooking Guy one. But this one will be a 51, and I love it. It's so nice. Every minute is individually marked all the way around the dial. Oh, I can't wait. Very excited. Anyway, I think we've done it all. We've covered a bunch of stuff. Everybody's been very good. So much like as school heads into the summer, we're going to let everybody go early. I got all the business taken care of. Hey, we just happen to have a couple openings for sponsorship. So if you're interested, let me know. Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com. It's very expensive. Most of you can't afford it. But if you have budgets, you want to get in front of the target customer base that you are serving, get in touch with me, Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com, and we can go ahead and talk about it further from there. So let me line it up here real quick so I can do this in a very proper and professional fashion. We make tracks to get on out all the way back in the first hour. Bit of an abridged Rod Gray segment. I would have loved to have had that 5 or 6 extra more minutes. I don't know if I would have gotten through everything, but we got through most of the important stuff. So we wish Rod good luck. I'm in talks with KCBS board president, and we're lining him up here over the next couple weeks so we can get what it looks like from the board side in hiring a CEO and see where Rod's expectation and the board's expectation is going to come together and hopefully gel very well so they can operate as a cohesive unit. And then, after Rod, we talked with Mike Lang, another pint, please. Mike is going to be doing live demos at the Hartsville Hardware Grill Fest 2022, September 17th. That's a Saturday, and we'll be there all day. I'll be MC. BBQ will be there as well. And then we closed it out with Susie and Todd Bullock. Sans their normal microphone on a much broader microphone, which is why it was a little bit more earth and room incorporated with that, but acceptable because microphone. 2 new products are out. Visit HeyGrillHey.com to go ahead and check those out and buy them up if you're interested, and subscribe to Todd's effort, the Foodie It podcast, like Food Idiot, but run together, Foodie It, on all the podcast platforms. It's the 4th Tuesday of the month next week, 2022, rapidly coming to a close, of course. We will have the bristly barbecue journalist, Derek Riches. We will have the embedded correspondent, and Chris Young from Combustion Inc., if you could believe it. So how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
Hello, this is Joe with Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue, and you are listening to The Barbecue Central Show.